Okay, first part, simplify if possible. Write your answer as a power. So that means you don't have to punch it in a calculator. 4 to the third, 4 to the fifth makes 4 to the eighth. Remember, if it's two bases multiplied and they're the same base, you just add the exponents. If it's one base raised to a power and another power, remember what you do?
Multiply.
Multiply. So that's just going to be 2 to the 12th. This one, you could do it two different ways. You could do the parenthesis first. That would be 42 to the third. Or you could write it this way, 6 to the third, 7 to the third. Either one of those would be correct. We're just leaving it as a power.
So for number 2, would you not do the 2 to the 4th 2 or not?
No, because
Not just say sign.
what this means is you've got a 2 cubed in the parentheses. You want 4 of them.
Okay.
So that's why you get 2 to the 12th. You're thinking of if it's something like this,
Yeah.
then you do the 2 and the A, if there's two things in there. But here there is just the one thing.
Okay.
That 4 is like what you just talked of. There's 3 things in here, and you gotta square them all. So you gotta square the 4, you gotta square the X, and you gotta square the Y squared. Evaluate, which means you are going to use a calculator. Write your answer as a fraction in simplest form. So, there's always 4 or 5 people that do this wrong. They take a calculator and they put in 5 to the negative third. And they write their answer as 0.008 and you get it wrong. Because it's not written as a fraction. Yeah, you need to use the rule. If it's a negative exponent, that means you put it underneath. It's 1 over 5 to the positive third. Remember when you move something, it changes the sign of the exponent. So now you can figure out the top is a 1, 5 to the third is 125. So 0.008 is 1/125th, but we want our answer as a fraction. So this one, you got to take the 1 to the negative first and the 3 to the negative first. So since they both have negative exponents, you got to move them both. This goes down, this goes up. So it's 3 to the first over 1 to the first, which is just 3. Here, this 2 has a negative 5, so you would put it underneath. So this 2 would stay where it's at on top. This one would move underneath. And now you can do some simplifying. Remember, it's easier just to cancel. If there's no exponent written there, that means it's a 1. So if I've got 1 on top and 5 on the bottom, I've obviously got more on the bottom. How many more? So it's 2 to the 4th on the bottom. And that one would cancel off. You can't leave it blank, so you got to put a 1. So then you can use your calculator to figure out 2 to the 4th, 16. Here we got to do 1 to the negative second and 4 to the negative second. They're both negatives, so they both have to flip. So this would move up to make it 4 to the positive second. This would move down. 4 squared is 16. 1 squared is 1. So the answer is just 16. Rewrite with positive exponents. So all this is basically moving stuff around. The only thing wrong with this is it's got a negative. So you just got to put it underneath to make it positive. And since there's nothing left on top, you got to put a 1. Here, the x has a negative 3. So that's got to move up. So we change the x to the positive third. This 3 is fine where it's at. It doesn't have a negative exponent on it, so it just stays on the bottom.
So if you put like, if you put 1, so it's the
Yeah.
same, right?
Yeah. So 11, the only thing you gotta do is what?
Put the X4 to the bottom.
Yep, move this down. So the Y3 stays on top, this moves on the bottom, and that's all you can do. 12, these two both have negatives, so they both gotta move up. So the X squared would move up to change from negative to positive 2. The Y would move up. The 2 doesn't have a negative exponent, so it would just stay on the bottom. Then we have the simplifying, which we already did some up there. It's easier just to cancel. There's more Y's on the bottom than on top. How many more? 1. So Y to the 1 on the bottom, those would all disappear, so you'd put a 1. Now, technically, Y to the first is just Y. If you put the 1 there at all, even though technically it's not completely simplified, it wouldn't be wrong.
So it'd actually be 1 over Y.
Yep, 1 over Y. This one, all we gotta do is cube both of these. So it'd be 4 cubed over X cubed. And since it says to simplify, you'd wanna figure out what 4 cubed is. 64. So 15, the best thing to do is simplify anything you can into parentheses. The 4 and the 3 won't reduce, so they'll stay 4 and 3. The X squared over the X, there's 1 more X on top than the bottom, which means there'll be 1 X on top. And then the Y's, there's 1 more Y on the bottom, so there'll be a Y on the bottom. But then you still have to take all of that to the 4th. So you gotta do 4 to the 4th, which is 256. X to the 4th, 3 to the 4th, 81, and then the Y to the 4th. So on 16, same thing. Simplify this stuff first. 2 over 3 doesn't reduce, so it just stays 2 over 3. The X's, there's 3 on top, 1 on the bottom, 2 more on top. The Y's, there's 2 on top, 1 on the bottom, 1 more on top. All of that is to the negative third. So, 2 to the negative third, X to the negative 6th, remember a power to a power you multiply, Y to the negative third, and then you gotta do the 3 to the negative third. So they all have negative exponents, so they're all gonna have to move. So the 3 would move up to the top and turn the 3 to the third, which is 27. The 2 to the cube, or all of these would move down. This would be 2 to the third, which is 8. And then the X to the negative 6 would move down, turn the X to the 6th. And the Y would move down. Y to the third, I can't get the 3 in there. So it'd be
Holy,
27, no, yep, over 8, X to the 6th, Y to the third.
are we gonna finish doing this tomorrow or?
Well, we'll try and finish it now. Okay, rewrite in decimal form. This just means move the decimal 2 spots, 1, 2. Move the decimal left 2 spots because it's negative, 1, 2. Then this is the opposite. Rewrite the regular number into scientific notation. So remember, it always goes after the first number, so it would just be a 2, times 10 to the negative 2, right. If it's a decimal, you'll have a negative exponent. If it's not a decimal, it'll be a positive exponent. So the decimal would move after the first number, times 10 to the 1, 2, 3.
So it's 1.042?
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
Which one?
I didn't get
16, 27 over 8x to the 6th y to the 3rd. Then on these, the shortcut is, it's all multiplied, so you can just take the 6 times 7 is 42, times 10, 10 to the negative 7th, times 10 to the negative 3rd, remember what you do to the exponents?
Wait, what? No, you add.
Ten to the negative
Add.
second.
Negative 50.
Yep, that would make 10 to the negative 5th. Because when it's the same base, you just add the exponents. So the problem with this is, the decimal is here, it should be there. So you gotta change that to 4.2 times 10. Now what happened, since it was negative, they were moving it this way. They went one too far.
So it'd be negative 4.
So that, they should have stopped at negative 4. Sometimes you don't have to do that. This one you wouldn't have to. 4, this is a divide one. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then remember what you do when you
Cancel.
subtract. So negative 2 take away negative 3 is 1. And there it's fine because the decimal is after the first number.
So for number 21, which one would it be, the 4.2 times 10?
This is the scientific notation because the decimal's after the first number. Here you gotta divide. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, so I'm not gonna have to move any decimals. And then when you subtract, negative 3 take away negative 4, that's 1 also. (24) 3 times 12 is 36. 10 to the negative second and 10 to the third, when they're multiplied, you add them. So negative 2 plus 3 is 1. So the decimal's not in the right spot. It should be there. So it's 3.6 times 10. Yes, they stopped here. It should have been there. They should have moved it one more. So it'd be to the second. Okay, now on these, you've got a straight line and you've got two exponents. This one's going down, which means it's a decay. So which one of these is a decay?
27.
Right, because that's less than 1. So that would be C. This one, it's kind of hard to see, but it is curving up, which means it's a growth. So that would be A. And this one's a straight line. Remember how you can tell if something's a straight line in an equation? No exponents. So that's B. So then these, just like we just did, to say whether they're growth or decay, all you look at is these numbers. Less than 1, so it's decay. Greater than 1, so it's a growth. Then here, you gotta use the formula. You deposit 2,000, so that's the C. 8% is the rate. The time is 3. Let's just finish these two. So, you gotta realize that they're paying this, so it's an increase. It's gonna be a growth. So you take 2,000 times 1 plus the rate, which is 0.08, raised to the third. So 2,000 times 1.08 to the third is 2519.424, which it's money, so you only have 2 decimals, so it's around to 42 cents. Then this one, you notice you don't have to solve. All you gotta do is write the growth model, just like we did here. So here's the initial times, it's increased 3%, which is 0.03. So that'd be 1.03 raised to the 5th. So, this is the same type. You don't have to solve, you just gotta write it. Let's just do it quick. It's a decay. So here's the initial. Now, since it's a decay, you gotta go 1 minus the rate. The rate is 3%, which is 0.03. So 1 minus 0.03 is 0.97 raised to the 6th. And it says you don't have to solve. And then this one you do have to solve. 10,000 times, it's a depreciation, so it goes down 0.18, so it's 1 minus 0.18. So that'd be 0.82 raised to the 5th. And this one you would have to solve on the calculator.
Happy birthday.